I am a wanderer. I travel the world in search of wisdom. On my travels today, I stopped by a fire made by an old man under the moonlight. This old man wore clothes the color of mud and was unafraid to show the many scars on his form. Resting between him and the fire were 4 stones, each the size of one's palm, and each a different color. I greeted him and asked if I could stay with him for the night. "You are very trusting," the old man replied. "Be careful not to trust too much." I asked why. He replied, "Trust killed one of the children of Rohan, the stone itself." When I sat with him and asked him to elaborate, he bowed his head slightly and replied, "The Tosan are said to be born from stone, granted life by their own stubborn refusal to accept non-existence. They did well to represent Rohan, showing resilience in the face of adversities unparalleled. However, in the end, they all broke one way or another. The first of the Tosan was Tosan Ren, a great warrior. He was a shield of his people and weathered many battles. In his final battle, it is said he faced off against a force unlike any ever before seen, with numbers that surpassed most villages at the time. He defeated all of them and took the head of their leader, but he suffered a great many wounds and fell that day. The second of the Tosan was Tosan Val, a poet of unmatched renown. His words awakened deviation and revolution in many, leading to a new era of understanding and re-examination of what was believed to be true. This was to ensure the foundation society stood upon was stable, as exposing weakness in its system would allow it to be strengthened. The leaders at the time, however, hated him for challenging their power. They sent their most loyal assassin to become friends with him, and perhaps the two could have found something more if they met under any other circumstances. But her blade found his throat eventually, and he died speechless. The third of the Tosan was Tosan Lex, who ruled a vast kingdom made of several villages. He was resolute in his decision-making, and his wisdom served him well. His people prospered, and they began to sing his praises. Over time, such praises began to taint the ruler, and he began to truly believe what they were saying. He began to carry himself as though he were some kind of god. This unshakable belief of his own divinity affected his wisdom, causing brash decisions to lead to a downfall most dishonorable. In the end, the people who once called him savior tore him to shreds and left his carcass in the river Uhen. The fourth of the Tosan was Tosan Gin, who was disgraced and exiled for deeds unspeakable for his time. He would not relent in his defense, however, doing everything he could to disprove this claim. However, the forces that were at the time either could not understand what he said or did not care. He was banished to the harsh forests of Volmad, where he lived alone with nothing but his wits and refusal to die. He turned out to live for quite some time before falling to the elements, which I cannot say for many who are born in this age. With these four in mind, those who follow Rohan recognize the moons in the sky as representations of the Tosan, each one their own color. We conduct rituals should any of the moons be in eclipse. For Tosan Ren, we find the mightiest beast in the wild and sacrifice it. For Tosan Val, we blanket our homes in darkness. For Tosan Lex, our leaders set aside their duties and perform a ritual to remind them of their place. For Tosan Gin, our families fast. This is our way, the way of Rohan. I was curious about something and asked what happens if more than one moon is in eclipse. He replied, "It's rather simple. If 2 or 3 moons are in eclipse, we observe the rite simultaneously. But if all 4 are in eclipse..." He then gestured to the sky above. All 4 moons, red and white and brown and gray, were in eclipse. It was a rare sight to behold, and one I could never properly convey with this written account. When I looked back at the old man, he held a knife in one hand and held his other over the fire. He placed a cut into his free hand and let some of the blood fall into the fire before quickly bandaging the wound. I was horrified to witness this. I asked if he truly believed in Rohan so much that he would offer part of his soul to it. He looked at me with knowing and tired eyes. We all lose at least part of our souls in our lives. whether it's in combat or from our own foolishness. I ask of you, Wanderer, is it better to offer your soul willingly, or to lose it? I pondered this for the rest of the night, and then I left the next morning.